This is the Range Rover Velar. It's a compact SUV that goes without saying is absolutely gorgeous. It's bite the back of your hand, beautiful. I remember seeing the first pictures of this car and thinking of it as a concept. Oh, they'll never build that. It's far too slim. It's far too outrageous. It would never go into production. But there was never a concept for this car. Those initial pictures were the Range Rover Velar. It's a car that rides on the successful F-Pace platform with very similar engine choices as that car. But as this is a Range Rover, it has to be so much more than that F-Pace. So it obviously has its own unique styling, some technology that actually debuted in this car for the interior and actually has become sort of the new styling standard for all of Range Rover's products. But the question I have to answer in this review of this R-Dynamic Velar, is this a Range Rover that has taken form as a priority over function? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the Velar for a drive, break down everything that I think is important for you to know about this car, and then at the end of this video, I'll place it in my ranking system to see where it lies against other compact SUVs. So without further ado, let's go for a drive. So the idiom that I'm sure you have heard before is that form follows function. How something works is the priority, and with Range Rover's products, some of these things can apply. When it comes to their design language, they have short overhangs, and this is to increase their off-road ability, which is part of Land Rover and Range Rover's whole brand setup. If one of their cars isn't capable off-road, it is useless, and this Velar is certainly capable off-road with its terrain response system too, and the optional air suspension. You can change around the different drive modes for this car, so beyond the comfort, eco and dynamic mode that you use on the road, you additionally have a grass, gravel and snow mode, a mud ruts mode, and a sand mode. All of these modes will change around where the power's going. Throughout the car, you have the ability to lock the differential, and with the air suspension, you can actually lower or raise and lock that in place as well. When you're driving on the road though, the air suspension will always revert back to the normal ride height. The high and low modes you can lock down for lower speeds, but as soon as you get over the number, I think it might be 35 kilometers an hour, something like that, it will ignore your ride height selection and go back to the normal mode. Another element of the car that has prioritized form over function are the door handles. You see they're electronically sliding in and out when you approach the car and when you drive away. Looks beautiful, very cool, and great to show off to your friends. It makes the car more aerodynamically efficient and therefore fuel efficient as well. But the problem comes during winters. What I have discovered in the time with this car is that when it's bitterly cold outside and you have locked the car, meaning that the handles have hidden away, they can actually freeze in place. This situation occurred where I had to get through the back door, the only handle that would open, to then crawl over and then unlock the door by pulling the physical handle inside. So a note to anybody that is looking to buy a Velar and lives in extreme cold climate and maybe doesn't have a garage or an underground parking lot to store it away. In this exact Velar, it doesn't have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you can now retrofit your JLR product to have that capability. I believe it's $300 to go into the dealership and have a little bit of a software update, I suppose, to get this car that functionality. The buttons on the steering wheel are physical and they do respond to inputs, but on the left-hand side, they change as well. So if you're ever customizing something in your digital instrument cluster, you hit the menu button and then it shifts around. And the problem with that is that if you're ever in this setting, you can no longer use the volume controls on the steering wheel. You have to resort down to the button. It is nice that they have a button, so I'm not going to get too bothered about that. But a detail that I haven't seen anywhere else in any other review is how you can change the volume. Instead of just tapping down on the left and right hand side, you can swirl your finger around to turn it up and down. It's a very light trace and it's not the most sensitive thing in the world, but kind of clever that it's there. What's caused a couple cuts in this review so far is the intervention of the safety systems in this car. It has all the latest tech that you'd expect out of a premium brand. So lane keep assist, radar assisted cruise control, a speed limiting function within the cruise control, and forward collision warning. But even on its most reserved setting, it's far too sensitive. Let's cut to a clip. Another aspect where form maybe has taken over function is the door handles. You can see, shut up, to where all the holes for the ventilated. Stop doing that! Why? Driving the Velar every day, to me, is a bit of a mixed experience. The air suspension is managed very nicely, the steering has some authority to it, and the 3-litre supercharged V6 has a nice little supercharger whine, but also a good amount of bassy rumble from the exhausts. This engine produces 380 horsepower, as the badge suggests, and 332 pound-feet of torque. Changing the gears manually with the 8-speed automatic transmission is really straightforward. You can just change them as you are in drive mode, or press down on the dial to go into sport, and then that is your full manual mode. It isn't as aggressive or as dynamic as the F-Pace on which this car is based upon, but you can throw this thing around a couple corners and it has some true driving enjoyment. But the problems begin driving in any situation with these seats. To me, they're just too hard. It's kind of like going into a furniture shop. You sit on the couch and you like it, but perhaps the padding is just too firm for your liking, too firm for your movie room or lounge. But the salesperson says, oh, just give it some time breaking it in and then the material will loosen and become more compliant. But this car has nearly 9,000 kilometers on it, and it still feels rather rigid. You have all the adjustability that you can want, and this car has heated, ventilated, and massaging seats, but just driving on an easy commute, my bones really do ache. Visibility isn't terrible, but it's far from the best in class, with the roof line and the belt line that pinch towards each other as you get to the rear of the car. It does affect the rear visibility slightly. With this car, it debuted the latest iteration of JLR's Touch Pro system. This is Touch Pro Duo with the touchscreen above and below. Now, this car may be the greatest learning curve of any vehicle I've ever come across when it comes to the infotainment system. I cannot tell you how challenging I find this car just to do a very simple function. For example, changing the fan speed. It is laid out logically, but because these two dials here, the physical elements of this screen, have the ability to affect multiple functions in this car, it gets very confusing. So for example, when I'm in seat, you have the option to turn them up for heating and cooled, or if you press another button here, then you'll turn on the massage functions. But then when you go over to climate, here you'll change around the actual temperature. Press down, you'll get back into the seats, and if you need to do something in a hurry, it's best leaving it to your co-pilot to do it for you, because you'll be constantly looking down and pressing and finding out that the dial isn't changing around the setting that you wish it does. And then again, when you go into vehicle, this is how you can also change around your driving mode if you don't want to press the buttons on the screen. You have some set things here, so the max AC, max fan speed for the windshield, hill descent control and traction control, those are fixed. Going up to the R Dynamic, you get the digital instrument cluster as well that's customizable, and all of these screens are beautiful and they have some wonderful colors to them, but I wouldn't say it's as sharp or as crisp as some of the latest Audi products. I will say that the heads-up unit, though, in this Velar is excellent. For all of the other aspects of the interior, though, you have rich leather on the steering wheel, top of the door cards along the dashboard and where you rest your arms. Here, the seats are leather as well, like I mentioned, heated, ventilated, and massaging. And you can see that with this pattern here, it has the Union Jack pressed into them and on the speaker grills as well. Beautiful little touches there. There's a little hidden storage behind this screen, and there's a little pertaining to the 3 cup holders that you have laid out here. And here's an aspect that will really age your Velar. with the surround of the screen, it bleeds down into the cup holder arrangement, and it's all a piano black plastic, and you can see how badly scratched it is just in the very short life that it's lived already. You have the ability to change around these inserts that are in the doors here. You can see they're this brushed aluminium, and I wish it would carry over to the other parts of the car, like this section down here, but also where we have the vents with that black plastic there. That could carry over too, surely. And then for the price point of this car, there are a few too many hard plastics lingering about, like at the bottom of the door cards, all of this central tunnel, and then the climate control venting for the rear seats as well. Touching upon the rear seats, I can fit behind myself comfortably, but I wouldn't want to spend a long journey back there. But with the three-way folding seats, there's a lot of adjustability that you can use when you're loading long items into this car. And because this one has the air suspension, you can actually lower the back of the car a little bit. If you're ever lifting a heavier item in, you don't have to lift so high off of the ground to get it into the car. The panoramic sunroof is gorgeous, and leaving this car in its standard setting, you can have the blind actually cover the car when you park up, and then as soon as you start the engine back up again, it folds away. So those are all of my thoughts pertaining to the Velar. Is it a disappointing car? No, not at all. But it does have some questionable features that I think lower its competitive edge against something like its German premium rivals. I love the look of the Velar. If it comes down to just buying a car purely on an aesthetic point of view, I think this isn't only just the best looking car in its class, but the best looking SUV ever made. But the problems that I have with the interior lead me to say that the Velar is a car that you should take a look at. Really spend some time in the dealership in front of that Touch Pro Duo screen. See if you can tolerate the seats, especially the ones that I have in this model, and determine if the Velar is the car for you. So that's been everything from me. Thank you so much for taking the time to watching this video. Please like the video if you liked it, and share it if you think other people will like it too. And if you want to do me a massive favor and hit that subscribe button just down below, that does the world for me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.